of companies, creating devastating consequences from a health perspective, but also from an economic perspective, but which is also speeding up, accelerating action on some areas that we were already foreseeing. And some of this has to do with the digital world. We already have been anticipating how and the better than cash alliance, we have been already anticipating the need to go for an approach which is much more efficient in terms of digital payment of workers. But this transition from cash to digital payments have also been pushed at the different levels, not just ILO. I mean, we have heard the G20 finance minister who already committed in 2018 to give a push to this approach. We saw also many governments, agencies, employers organizations, workers organizations also pushing in the same direction. But let's also be realistic. What we are talking about here is not just about wage payments or shifting to the digital technology. We are talking about better working conditions. We are talking about transparency and anti-corruption. We are dealing with the area of quick and safe payment. There is a strong gender component on this shift, which we should not be underestimated. There is also an important and strong migrant component and payment to migrant workers. And we have here also with us a representative of the Qatar government who has been incredibly working on this area. We are also dealing with informality and formality and how we promote transitions to the formal in a way which is intelligent. And we also foreseen huge challenges in terms of fees for financial services, digital connectivity, digital infrastructure, digital literacy, data protection, access to a smartphone, access to digital means, not just for workers, but also for employers and for small and medium companies. So it's difficult to push this agenda in an abrupt manner and in a rough manner. And the aim of this conference is to dig deeper on this topic to understand what is the smart action, the intelligent action that needs to be done. And for that, I would like to have first as a kind of keynote speaker, Martha Newton, but then we'll go with the next speakers. Please, we want to make of this a dynamic exchange. So you have the chat function, which is a traditional one for those who want to raise questions, but also we have the questions and answer functions. Use any of them. We'll take the questions from you at the end of the discussion. Martha, thank you again for joining. The floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Roberto, and just thank you so much to the International Organization of Employers for taking the leadership to convene this discussion today. We're really looking forward to it. We're also just very grateful for our collaboration with the United Nations-based Better Than Cash Alliance and the work that we've just really accelerated doing, particularly in the midst of the pandemic. We all know that digital technologies have disrupted the financial system and have transformed the way that workers and businesses are conducting financial transactions. And you all, and some of you have seen this in action, quickly moving away from cash and embracing digital means to make or receive payments. And so, as Roberto's already alluded, we've had this acceleration to the transition of digital payments, including wage payments, as a way to further discourage in-person financial transactions and minimize the spread of the virus. But really before, and as we've just stated, even more so during the crisis, there have been many governments who are really, in the weeds and how they're going to implement policy and regulatory changes to encourage the transition to digital payments. And we're looking forward to hearing from some of those governments today. And this includes obviously the payment of wages, but in the current context, also the payment of temporary wage subsidies. And despite the trend, it's still estimated that 230 million male and female workers in the private sector still receive their wages in cash. So, Many enterprises around the world, large and small, have embarked on this journey to transition from cash to digital wage payments. And it really brings opportunity to improve and make more efficient payroll services, advance conditions of work, and facilitate access to services and markets through improved compliance and growth. But the transition, and again, Roberto has already alluded to it, it really also, one of the most critical elements is it has the potential to enable workers, and particularly the most vulnerable. You know, women who, quite frankly, the burden of this pandemic has been borne on their backs. Migrants, domestic workers, informal workers, all have a better opportunity to control their wages and access to financial services for better resilience and economic opportunity. So the digital payment of wages, whether it's onto bank accounts or mobile payments or prepaid cards, you know, it really presents key opportunities to strengthen sustainable business practices and to broaden the financial inclusion of workers. But we know that the transition from cash to digital, responsible digital wage payments does come with challenges. And I'm looking forward to us as a group navigating and talking about some of those challenges today. Challenges for enterprises, for workers, for the regulatory and financial communities. And in general, you know, we really here at the ILO believe absolutely that the benefits of making the transition to digital payments far outweigh the costs. And so, and I truly believe for all parties involved, you know, therefore we've got to work together and really, you know, to overcome kind of the inertia of the status quo and to access tools and information to make this transition. So cash-based businesses, you know, can make the change. We want to be able to provide tools to help them support and do so and benefit from doing so. So we have committed here at the ILO to promote responsible digital payments by joining the Better Than Cash Alliance. And we did that back in 2019. And, you know, wages, as we all know, one of the most important conditions of work. The ILO Global Wage Report that we released this past December, you know, found that monthly wages fell or grew more slowly in the first 6 months of 2020 as a result of the pandemic. And we know that the crisis is likely to inflict continued massive downward pressure on wages in the near future. So, you know, we really look forward to this discussion today to help support employers to make this transition. And it's a really right now a key critical part of the ILO's work. We've just recently launched the Global Center for Digital Wages for Decent Work. And the ILO Global Center's purpose is to promote the responsible transition from cash to digital wage payments through actionable research, evidence-based advocacy, knowledge sharing, capacity building, and the development of inclusive digital payment ecosystems. So we really strongly believe that employers and their business organizations have a key and critical role to play in ensuring an effective transition. And we look forward to continuing to work with all of you, as well as governments and worker organizations and the financial sector, the development community. We really have to work together, not only at the, you know, in our level and conversations today, but at the regional level, at the global level. And it's only if we work together that it's going to be possible to accelerate the responsible transition to advance decent work and social justice in all countries and in all sectors. So today is a good opportunity for us to learn, to listen, and to take in specific experiences. I'm looking forward to hearing about some of the experiences that what Bangladesh has been happening in Bangladesh, what's been happening in Qatar, and how other countries and actors who are here today in this conversation are using the conversations to advance how digital wage payments can be used, particularly in this difficult context of the pandemic that has really accelerated all of our action, you know, activities and action that we've got to look at this issue. So I want to thank the International Organization of Employers again today for just being a leader and such a strong advocate for your members to get everyone involved in this discussion. I also want to thank Matthias Thorns, who has been such a critical partner for us here at the ILO, and we look forward to being a part of the conversation today. And we also have with us Valerie Breda, who is with our team in enterprises, who has really helped facilitate and steward this work so well. So thanks, and I look forward to the conversation. Thank you, Roberto.
Thank you so much, Martha. I think you gave us many already inputs. One of them is precisely this data of 230 million workers receiving their payments in cash, and you refer also to the experience in Bangladesh. And by the way, we have Rubana with us, and we are also witnessing how difficult also some of the initiatives that we have together with the ILO, the call for action for the garment sector. And one of these difficulties comes precisely because of the difficulties to make payments by using digital means. So we have now with us also Mario Chantreau. I hope that I pronounce it correctly. And again, thank you very much to the Better Than Cash Alliance. I think that you have been also a great partner for IOE, and also you have taken the lead also pushing in this direction. If I'm not correct, you are the head of the private sector and innovation area within the Better Than Cash Alliance. And I have two questions for you. The first one is, what are you witnessing as a development during this period of pandemic? I mean, how things are being or not being accelerated in terms of digital payments? And the second question for you is, what are the benefits and obstacles? Because yeah, I refer to some of the obstacles, but what are the major ones, or how do you see them really as a big handicap that we need to overcome in the short term? Thank you very much for your time, and thank you for joining, Mario.
Thank you very much, Roberto, and I hope you can hear me well. Thank you for inviting me and the Better Than Cash Alliance to speak today to your members and different companies about digital wage payments. I think you're correct in your assessment. The COVID-19 pandemic and the government and companies' responses to the crisis have clearly driven and shown an important push to digital payments in general. Just to give you an order of magnitude of that, according to the World Bank, as of December 2020, you have 215 countries around the world that have planned or implemented additional social protection measures due to the COVID-19 pandemic. And these measures are reaching today around 1.28 billion people, or 16% of the world population. So this is unprecedented. And these social protection payments include direct money transfer, safety net programs, but more and more also wage subsidies, which are now going through 93 countries. And we've seen the trends also among the private sectors, right? And how important it is for the government and the companies to see how we can use digital solutions to help the social protections payment happening and support the growth. So we've seen also companies and businesses, working to look at the opportunities of digital payments to ensure that workers, suppliers, and distributors continue to receive payment, even through lockdown period or when social distancing are required. And this unprecedented level of payments, I think have reminded us once more how important it is to have, as a society, a way to send money quickly, efficiently, and in a transparent manner to the population, the most vulnerable population that need it the most. And that apply whether you are a government wanting to reach your citizens, whether you're a company or an employer wanting to reach your employees, or whether you're also an individual wanting to support your family during a crisis time. So this is really the mandate of the Better Than Cash Alliance. It's supporting companies and governments and international organizations to build this inclusive digital payment ecosystem. So the Better Than Cash Alliance is a UN-based partnership gathering different types of members. We have around 35 governments that are members of the Alliance, which means that they have taken a commitment to look at how they can support the utilization of digital solution and reducing cash in the way that they make payments. And we also have companies that have started to take that commitment, many of which I see today on this panel and attendees as well. So we have leading companies such as Gap, which we're happy to have on the panel today, H&M, Inditex, but also Unilever or Coca-Cola, and other agribusiness sector, which are working to drive adoption of digital payments through their supply chain. What do we mean by digital payments? Very quickly, I think Martha mentioned that, but just to have everybody clear, the Alliance has been really created to promote and show the importance of the diversity of technology and solutions that are needed. So we're looking both at bank accounts and making, transfer through bank account through an app or through a web-based or an ATM. We're looking also at mobile money solutions, of course, which now exist in a lot of different markets, which could be different from bank accounts, but also provide, ways to access financial services. And in some cases, we're also looking at prepaid cards, which can still be a very cheap way to reduce the cash and help people to start getting access to some financial services. One example, which I'm, very happy that and very honored that we have Dr. Hook with us on the panel today, of course, of this acceleration is an example is what happened in Bangladesh and the garment sector. So, we estimate that there are around 4 million of workers in Bangladesh. Before COVID-19, it was around 1 million of workers that were paid through a bank account or a mobile wallet for their wages. And in April 2020, more than 2.5 million accounts were open in just a few weeks, just to show you, the magnitude of it. And this was really possible, because of the commitment and the support for many years also of the government of Bangladesh, the willingness to use digital solutions, and also, the engagement of the employer association like BGMEA and the brands, of course, that have started that journey as well. And I think now our role, as you were asking about where do we stand now in the crisis, is that the acceleration is happening. So our role as different stakeholders is to see how do we make sure that transition is responsible? How do we make sure that it's based on long-term sustainability so that the employees, the workers, the small businesses will really benefit from it? And this is really an area where we see, of course, some of the obstacle of making that happen, and where all the different parties and organizations have a role to play. You were asking me about the benefits of digital payments, and I would go through them quickly, but I think one way to also see the benefits of digital payments, and I'm sure as many companies and employers on the call today, it's important to remember what we call the hidden cost of cash. And so we have, if you think about, if you think that you are a large employer in India, in Bangladesh, in Ethiopia, or in Mexico, when come payday, and let's say you have 5,000 employees to pay, that means you have to bring millions of dollars in banknotes into your factory or plantation or, place of work. And that means a lot of logistics, security issues, machine gun security guards. If you are an employee, that also means that you need to stand in line. You need to receive potentially your money in an envelope. You need to count it on the spot, maybe sometimes argue that it's not, the right amount, and be able to manage that on the spot, when you receive that amount. And in some cases, we also know that it means that you have to take public transport with your money. You have to hide maybe some of that money in a dormitory where you stay. And then we've also heard, of course, stories of, line of debtors waiting for you outside some of the place of work because everybody knows it's payday today. And so that is becoming very difficult to also control your finance. And finally, as a brand or as an international organization, you have very limited way to check exactly how much money got into the pocket of the employee, right? Because this is all relying sometimes on paper trail or things like that. So I just wanted to remind, a little bit the difficulties of cash. And that's the reason why we call Better Than Cash Alliance, because every digital solution is not competing against each other, but really trying to build, a transition to cash. And so in terms of the benefits that the companies have, experienced, we've seen, of course, different types. One type is around the business case and some of the commercial aspects. So we've seen many companies reporting efficiency, on payday when managing it through digital solution, reducing the administrative and staff time that is needed, sometimes by more than half the time. We've also seen some increased revenue, and that is coming often because you see a lot of productivity reduction during payday. So moving to digital payments means that everybody know when their money arrived on their mobile account or on their phone, and it can be checked quickly. And that way you also reduce, lost production on the day. We've also seen, of course, greater transparency and security. Some of the companies that have started to digitize wages have seen the reduction in what they've called ghost workers or ghost employees that were, part of the system, but were actually more not existing at the moment. And also being able to follow better what are some of the requirements and compliance with some national standards and national laws in terms of what needs to get paid to the workers. And finally, of course, there is, a lot of benefits to the workers and the employees itself, which is also definitely something that, everybody on this call is also important to see. And I just wanted to state very briefly some data points from a partner that we work with called BSR, which has been working in Bangladesh and digitizing payments for 100,000 employees, as an example of the impact. And they combined that transition with a lot of support and training to the employees as well. And they've seen results which are quite interesting. Of course, impact in terms of access to financial services. 1 in 2 women were able to open a mobile money account for the first time. 1 in 5 employees were able to save more regularly because of getting access to a formal way of doing it. And more importantly, they've also seen 1 in 5 women able to show that they're starting to make joint decisions on how their money and wage are being used in a household. So that also shows you the tremendous impact that getting access to control over your finance and financial services can bring if this is done responsibly and with the right tool in the hand of the employees. Where do we see obstacles today? So that is, a very important element that everybody would be interested in, where we need to work on together. We refer to at the Better Than Cash Alliance of a set of principles, which is called the Responsible Payment Digital the Responsible Digital Payment Guidelines, which are, examples of some of the practices that are important to ensure that you will get scale on the solution, and also that you will be able to respect and make the most of the benefits to the employees and the population that receive the transformation for the first time. And this is even more and more important with the acceleration of COVID-19. So I will just take a little bit of examples here very quickly, and we can get back to that in the chat. The first one is around, ensure product transparency for clients. So what we've seen in the COVID-19 crisis is that a lot of employees are asked to get paid digitally, but they might not have the information in terms of where can they access their money. What are the cash out, network where they can get and get access to their money? Is there enough ATMs, enough liquidity for that to happen around payday? We've also seen, the issue of being very clear and transparent in terms of the fees that are related to that and how all those fees can be shared, across the industry. Another very important one is the number 8, provide client recourse. So as the transition happened very quickly, how do you make sure that employees know where to call if there's an issue on their account, or if suddenly, something is not being showed up? And finally, another very important element is how do we build together an ecosystem? How do we make sure that employees or suppliers are not just paid digitally, but can also pay digitally and access additional services that will help them to really, make the benefits of the transition to digital. So I just wanted to refer to that framework, and happy to share some links on that topic, because this is really what's considered as some good practices to help make a responsible digital transition. And we're very happy and honored to be working with the International Labour Organization and the International Organization of Employers through the recently launched center to help make that transition responsible and long-term.
Thank you so much, Marjorie. I think it has been a great and excellent input. And you refer also to the government that are already working with you. We have with us a representative of a government that has taken, I would say, an ambitious and responsible approach on this area, and is the government of Qatar. Who is also very actively engaged in other matters that are linked also to the ILO. And we have with us our friend, and I say our friend because we have been working also with him personally, Mohamed Abbamul, and I again apologize if I pronounce Mahmoud Agbulab, sorry, and apologize if I pronounce it incorrectly. What we would like to know from you is what was the rationale that brought you also within the wage protection system to promote digital payments. But also, and that's also important, and Mario referred to that, what are the challenges and how we as employees organizations, in the case of Qatar, we have the Qatar Chambers of Commerce and Industry, can push this agenda in an effective manner. So thank you again, Mahmoud, for joining us, for your work with us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank the IOE and the ILO for the organization of this event on a very important topic, and for giving us the opportunity to share with you Qatari's experience with digital wage payments. Back in 2015, the WPS was introduced to ensure workers' wages are paid on time. The legislation required companies to pay employees through banks within 7 days of the due period. Cash payment, of course, are not recognized. But the WPS also had a secondary objective. It created a digital record that has increased transparency and prevented wages disputes for the benefit of workers and employers alike, and for the government and also for the judiciary, because there is a clear record of the wages payment history in the system. The WPS in Qatar applies to all private sector employees who are covered by the labor law, which is the vast majority of the workforce in the country. To ensure also low wage workers are also included, the central bank instructed commercial banks to issue ATM cards for all workers regardless of their income level. Non-compliance with the WPS can result in fines or even in imprisonment. These penalties were increased last year, but the most common penalty, which is at the immediate disposal of the ministry, is to block the company's access to the government services. The WPS allowed us to more effectively monitor wage payments accelerate across the private sector. Moving to the success, in 2019, the ministry commissioned an independent and comprehensive assessment of the WPS that identified strengths and gaps, and put forward recommendations for how it could be further improved. The assessment and the work to improve a number of and to implement a number of the recommendations has been carried out in cooperation between the government of Qatar and the ILO. The assessment found that the WPS has led to more timely payment of wages and reduce a range of wage disputes. It has enabled a more timely resolution of wages disputes and the interest of workers, employers, and the government. Now over 94% enterprises are registered in the system. Of the 1.7 million eligible workers, 96% are registered in the WPS. Also, by enabling all employees to open bank accounts regardless of their income, it has extended the inclusion of low-wage workers in banking institutions. Furthermore, the detailed data on wages can be used to identify trends and even inform policy. For example, the WPS data was an important element in informing the analysis related to the establishment of the minimum wage in Qatar, which is coming into force next month. Despite the success and the implementation of the WPS, a few challenges remain. while the WPS has reduced the number of incidents of non-payment or delay wages, in reality, it has not eliminated them. As in everywhere around the world, COVID-19 has had an impact on enterprises. This has led to an increase in cases of non-payment of wages or delay payment of wages, particularly in the middle of 2020. Utilizing the system is still complicated for some small enterprises that do not have dedicated HR personnel, for example. The ministry is, of course, increasing the communication with small companies, extending support services, and also amending the system to make it more user-friendly. Another improvement that is happening right now is to make the submission from the enterprises more detailed, so that there is a more atomized breakdown of how the employees' wages are calculated, including overtime and different allowances, and as well as wage deductions. At present, the WPS does not apply to employers of domestic workers. However, also last year, in light of the COVID-19 restrictions on movement, the ministry and the central bank adopted measures to promote the financial to the domestic workers access to the bank accounts, thereby enhancing their wages of protection and financial inclusion. The ministry is currently in discussion with partners on how the WPS could be extended to the to cover domestic workers. The last point before concluding, I would like to highlight the important role of Qatar Chamber and the rollout of WPS. The Qatar Chamber were consulted on the new requirement and also helped to communicate the change to the business community. And improvements are made to the WPS, the ministry and the chamber will be working, of course, together to disseminate these to companies. The chamber are a key partner for the ministry in all of the labor-related reform in the country. I'll stop here. Thank you for your attention. I hope that I covered.
Thank you very much, Mahmoud. I think you have also been very, very detailed, and we saw also the role of the chambers also working in this direction. Let me also go to another country and to a person who has been also leading this digital payment push, if I can say, but also other discussions. And it's Dr. Haq, Rubana Haq. She's the president of the government sector, if I can use that denomination, Bangladesh, BEGME. But also we have, she's working, of course, with that, but also with Farouk, Secretary General of the BEF, the Bangladesh Employees Organization. Rubana, what we need from you, you have been at the leading area on this movement, but you have also been experiencing, like anyone else, like any other organization, at the front level, the difficulties, the challenges in a country like Bangladesh of people moving from cash payment to digital payment, and how difficult that is. Okay, and we have been also witnessing that in many sense. People don't have accounts. There's a culture element. There is a gender element. Also, we see that the connectivity issue. And as Mario said, you have diverse means. It's not just the transfer itself. You have other elements. We would like to know more from you. How do you foresee to overcome these challenges? And thank you again for joining us. It's always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you, Matthias, for the question. ILO, IOE, and Better Than Cash, thank you very much for allowing me to be here with you today. Well, yes, there were tons of lessons learned. And at the same time, there were tons of difficulties. The primary difficulty was in handling the mindset of most of the people that I came across. So when we first, even before COVID, we started with a small pilot project on 150 workers, and we did a digital wallet even before COVID hit us. And we thought, that digital wallet would become the lifestyle for the worker so that we could push in not only digital payment, but also shopping, credit, and of course, just building a worker's profile. So we tried doing that. We applied to the central bank for the license, and which of course was under consideration. But before that happened, before we could go any further, and we did actually launch a very, very good pilot project. But before that happened, COVID hit us. And when COVID hit us, the importance of digital payment just became larger than life itself. And at that point, government, especially Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, had made sure that when we got the loan package, it's stimulus, but it's loan. It's not free. It's on 2% service charge one time. She made sure that we were supposed to give directly to the workers. Now that was a challenge because the moment everyone heard that it will go directly to the workers, people had the reason to feel a little slighted, and they said, it's our money, we are borrowing the money, and how is it not going to be coming to our accounts? So I said, keep quiet, don't say a word, we just need to move forward. Because what was more important was making sure that the workers got paid on time. So this was a brilliant step by the government, which ensured that every worker got paid. But of course, while we tried to bring everything into play, we were also challenged with a lot of bureaucratic hiccup. For instance, we were lucky because we were prepared for it. We had built a full-on portal, an online portal for registering with BGMEA, because the government had made a rule that it would have to be certified by BGMEA and BKMEA. Otherwise, no one would get paid. There was a Form D which had to be signed by us. So we made sure that all the certificates came to us. We had to literally go through thousands of pages of just factory information of worker salaries and everything. We had to literally certify, and I had to sign the certificates. So it was interesting for us because in less than 15 days, the whole sector, 4.1 million workers, were all set up to receive payments digitally. So anything is possible in this world. That's a key learning that we had. If you have the will, you really, really have the way. You make sure that the way is there. So this is what happened, and everybody was pleasantly surprised. But I must give substantial thanks to the mobile financial services in Bangladesh, because apart from just the banks, the MFS service was excellent. Without bKash, Nogod, and the others, and Rocket, most of all, for Dutch Bangla Bank, it would have been impossible for us. They worked in the fastest possible speed, and we had no hiccups whatsoever. So people came up and said, number one, I mean, what if the workers don't get paid? I mean, with so many payments done, there was supposed to be, bound to be some mistransfers. Nothing happened. And I have no idea how this happened, but there was no glitch. No substantial glitch, nothing at all. Yes, a delay in payment of probably 12 hours or so at the max, but the lag was not beyond 12 hours, which was very understandable. So this is what we had faced. These were the mindsets of not having the money transferred straight to our account, but the banks basically just dispersed it to the workers directly, because through our accounts, of course, but we had nothing to do with it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruben. I think that you gave us at least two elements. One has to do with the trust and building and mentality and the business, and the other has to do with the partnerships, with efficient partnerships, because you refer to your association with the bank sector, with the mobile payment bank association was great, but also with the government. I think that's also what we want to build here. And for that also we have companies, and the first one we have is GAP, and we have Kapil Mathur. Again, sorry if I pronounced badly your name. I think it's okay. And you are the Director of Sustainability and Supplier. And we have mainly two questions for you. One has to do with supply chains, because at the end of the day, this is also an issue which is linked to the way you deal with your suppliers, isn't it? And the other question is related to what you can bring as experience to other companies. I mean, other companies that are moving in the same direction. So the floor is yours. Thank you so much for joining us.
Sure. So, our digital journey or digital way journey with our suppliers started back in 2005 when we started piloting this concept with a few of our factories in India. If you remember back then, there were no mobile wallets. For workers to have a bank account, it was very difficult because of the kind of documentations that were required by the laws then for them to have a bank account. So we started out with these 3 factories, and the results that came within the year were very positive. Workers started getting more control over their salaries. So for example, about 80% of the workers who work in factories are women. Back in the day when they used to be paid cash, a lot of the male members of their families would wait outside of the factory on payday. And when they would exit, they would just hand over the cash to their husbands, fathers, whoever. So once they had bank accounts, the money would go directly to the bank. So this stopped. We actually got cases where the women workers shared their stories where, maybe their husbands would take that money and spend it on drinking. Whereas after their bank accounts, they had more control over it. So even if they had to give some money to their husbands, it was not all. So, a lot of these social issues, which they were at homes, we got some very positive, feedback from them. So that gave us the confidence of sharing such best practices with other suppliers in our supply chain. So then we started, going out to other suppliers and saying that, these are some of the learnings, or these are some of the benefits that we have seen of having bank accounts for workers and paying salaries through digital means. Some of the other advantages, was that there was more compliance, right? So when you're paying through a bank, there's a digital trail. All that information is very easily available. So a lot of factories, I'm not casting aspersion on every industry here, but there are factories which underpay or which try to hide. So all that kind of, workers started getting more in hand. There was convenience. They could withdraw cash whenever they wanted. It was easy to transfer money. There are migrant workers who come and work in cities far away. If they need to transfer money to their families back home, it's very easy now. With them having these bank accounts and digital wallets, if when you have cash, typically workers would end up spending most of it by the end of the month. But with having bank accounts and when withdrawing in smaller amounts as per need, they actually started having some savings in that bank accounts, and those savings accrued month over month, year over year. And what that resulted in was a bit of financial inclusion, because when they started having savings, the banks started offering them investment opportunities or even offering them loans. Again, anecdotally, we came across several cases where workers ended up taking a small loan to buy a cycle or maybe a motorcycle in some cases, so those kind of opportunities started coming up for workers. So because of all these advantages to workers, again, a confidence of sharing these best practices amongst our other suppliers kind of increased. We started doing it more and more. There were benefits for factories. So as we were doing this, the factories came back and they shared that look, I mean, this was increasing their efficiency. Typically, in a say 1,500 worker factory, there would be 4 to 5 people who would be involved in dispersing cash. So those man-days got saved because this could be done within a few hours. Typically, again, on payday, during the days of cash, the workers would stand in a queue, they would wait for their turn. So all that would lead to production time being lost. Once they got the money, they would count it and they would recount it. Then there would be arguments with the management over whether they got paid right, etc. All that got eliminated. So this disruption was reduced. Attrition also was reduced in many factories because of having bank accounts. People tend to stick around more. So like, again, there was about a 50% reduction in several factories over a period of time because of them having transferred salaries digitally. And as Marjo mentioned, it eliminated the risk of transferring huge amounts of cash from the bank to the location of the factory. And that, given that cash is like runs into millions of dollars every month, I think that was an added benefit to the employers. So with all these benefits for the workers, for the suppliers, and for us, it was increased transparency into what the workers were earning. We went on this path of sharing these best practices, influencing our suppliers to pay digitally. And today, almost 90% of the workers, 90% of the factories that we source from get paid digitally. That translates into about 600,000 workers in about 600 factories across 20 countries. So that's been our journey with our supply chain on this. And most of our suppliers are now very happy paying salaries digitally, having realized the benefits that it has for them as well as for their workers. To your second question about what roles brands can play, I think one of the most important roles is in kind of canvassing with their suppliers, sharing some of these learnings of the benefits of digital transfer of salaries. I mean, there are hundreds and thousands of factories all across the world. Not all of them be paid digitally, but sharing these examples that come from countries like Bangladesh, which has, I mean, it's the best example to have today because they started their digital journey, if I remember correctly, about 2 years ago. And within 2 years, they have achieved what countries took decades to achieve, right? So I think that is an example to give to any country. The proactiveness shown by the industry in Bangladesh, I think, is a very amazing example that we can share, and kind of learnings we should share with our other suppliers in other countries. Another thing that brands can do is canvas more with countries which do not have the digital payments ecosystem, and partner with the industry, partner with ILO, partner with the government and Better Than Cash Alliance to develop those ecosystems. There are still countries even today where these ecosystems are well developed, where either they don't exist in some countries and in some countries they're still under development. I think if we could find ways to to have some catalysts which can increase that, which would improve the ecosystem, that would be really beneficial. And those 230 million workers which we were talking about, I think that those are mainly, a lot of them are not getting paid digitally because the ecosystem just doesn't exist in many of those locations.
I think it's been great. I think I'm not muted. I think it's been great also your input. I'm very shocked also about the word is not shocked, but also very impressed about also the element that you referred to, the gender aspect. I mean, the husband waiting in the factories to be paid, and how now in a digital approach, it's not that this is going to disappear totally, but this is a different setting, isn't it? And also your last remark also, I mean, not about the best examples exactly, but an example of a country, but also some organizations that have taken the lead proactively and have made a transformation in 2 years period, because they have also, of course, an ecosystem, which is the other element, and whether you have also the ecosystem. So again, that's about efficient partnerships. great input. Thank you, Kapil. We have another company, which is a partner company of IOE, Disney. Thank you for joining us. Disney has also been working intensively in this area. And we have Shilpa Nathan with us, and she's manager of human rights, labor, working conditions. And this is also about working conditions. We said it before. Shilpa, the floor is yours. The questions are basically what's your experience? What are the challenges that you see, and what we can do better all together in this direction? Thank you so much. By the way, before I give you the floor, we are realizing that we have many questions. We'll have time to answer all of them, and so be ready. And I am asking the panelists to answer the questions. I will ask the help of Matthias Storms, the deputy, the Deputy Secretary General of IOE, also to raise these questions to you and to find a way also to answer all of them. And also I have to say that we have also to shift in IOE from the chat function of Zoom to the questions and answer function. I know that many of you are more familiar with the chat function. That's what we didn't delete that, but we have a set of questions on both sides. We'll make sure that all the questions are also taken. Thank you so much. Shilpa, the floor is yours.
Great. Thank you, Roberto. Hi, everyone. Good morning from here in DC. I'm Shilpa Nathan. As Roberto mentioned, I'm the Senior Manager of Labor and Human Rights, and I sit within the Global Public Policy team at the Walt Disney Company. And many thanks to the IOE and the ILO and the Better Than Cash Alliance for having me here. So to answer why and how Disney is supporting the transformation from cash to digital payments in the supply chain, I want to step back and tell you about a program that Disney created approximately 9 years ago called the Supply Chain Investment Program, or SCIP, which is really a capacity building program that supports innovative and scalable initiatives that address root causes of poor working conditions in global supply chains. And every year for the past 9 years, we've focused on a combination of challenges in the supply chain, whether it's child labor, forced labor and human trafficking, gender equality, occupational health and safety, worker voice channels, enhancing traceability and supply chain transparency, by funding around 3 to 4 partners that are designing innovative, unique solutions that improve the lives of workers in the supply chain, with really a closer focus on the manufacturing supply chain, specifically garments and toys. And it was really through our SCIP program, the Supply Chain Investment Program, that we started first funding BSR's HER project. And we were one of their first company partners and funders. And we started initially with HER Finance in India, which targeted female factory workers and provided them financial education and tools to help them break the cycle of poverty among working women and their families. We soon expanded this program, seeing the success that this had to Brazil, Indonesia, and Mexico, because we understood that, from the metrics of this program, that enhanced financial literacy among female factory workers were providing numerous benefits to them. So it was really through this great partnership with BSR HER that we saw them on their journey when they started coordinating with the Gates Foundation and became involved in the Better Than Cash Alliance, whom we have here represented on the panel through Marjo. And they started looking into digitizing wages as they saw that 230 million adults, a number that we've mentioned here on the panel today, globally receive their private sector wages in cash. And why does this matter? Well, it's really risky for employers who face theft or fraud in the transportation and distribution of cash wages. It's also inefficient, as workers must often stand in line to receive cash wages. Again, this is something Marjo had mentioned earlier, and it cuts into their productive and personal time. And it's also disempowering for women who have less control over their wages when paid in cash. So BSR HER, whose focus is really on empowering or re-empowering women workers, embarked on a pilot program to digitize wages in more than 70 factories in Bangladesh for over 160,000 workers, the majority of them female garment workers. And the idea was that in a country like Bangladesh, where there are thousands, many of them women, that are not participants in the formal banking sector, wage digitization can bring a large number of underbanked individuals into the sector while also increasing efficiency and transparency of wage payments. And really, that was when the data showed that through a combination of financial literacy training, garment workers were more likely to save, but also through wage digitization, women were also more likely to participate in household financial decision making because they now had a fuller picture of their household's finances. And what did this lead to? Well, the digitization led to 152% increase in mobile money registration in nearby communities. And rather than these accounts just sitting dormant and unused, they were being used by both women and men to save and borrow and pay bills. So we had the chance starting in 2019 to fund BSR HER's wage digitization in Bangladesh in earnest. And really after surveying factory workers that had their wages digitized, and Marja alluded to the impact, there was an 86% increase in mobile money account ownership among women, a 50% increase in formal account ownership overall, making it a huge contributor to financial inclusion, a 33% increase in workers reporting that they saved a portion of their wages each month, and 95% of women preferring to be paid digitally versus cash after 6 months of exposure to digital wages, which is a really remarkable timeline considering that for years they were receiving cash payments, and just after 6 months, which in the grand scheme of things is not very long, they saw a great benefit and a preference for digital payments. And there was a 15% increase in the likelihood of women participating in household decisions on spending and saving. And from a business perspective, and this is something that had been spoken to by several of the panelists, it reduced administrative time spent on payroll by 53% after factories transitioned away from cash, which again is a pretty remarkable benefit. And we, so through the SKIP program at Disney, recognize that there are many advantages to the quote unquote switch to digital financial services. It's not just as simple as signing up for a mobile bank account. There really needs to be investments in shifting behavior away from cash, particularly in communities where women are less likely to appear in tax rolls, where they may not have formal identification like an ID card or even own a cell phone. So this is why we felt that part of enhancing working conditions is empowering workers to have the tools and resources needed to control their own finances, enhance their prospects for economic recovery, and really improve resilience in the long run. And we can see this through some of the insightful stories told here on how digital payments can be critical in major emergencies such as the COVID-19 pandemic. And in the end, we're supportive of solutions that promote dignity, security, and empowerment of workers in the supply chain, which is why we felt that investing in BSR HER's efforts to at least pilot, conduct surveys, really develop relationships and trust with workers to understand how wage digitization can positively impact their lives. So with that, I'll pause because I do know that there is a long list of questions, and I'll hand it back to you, Roberto. Thank you.
Thanks to you, Shilpa. I mean, I want to stress also the point you referred to on I would call it productivity, and I think that Kapil also referred to that. At least we have the gender angle on one side, which is very much your perspective, and you started with a women empowerment approach, and then you finished with also with this. Well, you finished that led you to this digital payment approach, which is also quite amazing in terms of results and impact. But also, this is a productivity issue for companies at the end of the day, because they reduce many administrative costs. You also referred to such basic things of not having an ID, not having any identity card in many countries, or not having a smartphone, and which links also to the idea of controlling my own finance. Okay, so the investment on a partnership is again there. So we have now time, but I want to also give the floor to a very important person for us in the ILO who has been working with us and with Matthias on this area. And this is Valerie Breda on the enterprise department, so that she can make some also remark based on her expertise, but because you are working in as an specialist on social finance within the enterprise department, but also you have been also very much involved on this initiative. Thank you again, Valerie, for the engagement of ILO. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Roberto, for giving me the floor, and thank you very much to all for your presentations. This is super inspiring. As you said, I'm working for the ILO Social Finance Program of the ILO in Geneva. So we engage with financial institutions to enable them to better contribute to the decent work agenda. And I've been coordinating the efforts of the ILO when it comes to wage digitization. So the beauty of wage digitization is that it's not only about financial inclusion, right? It's also about helping enterprises to be more productive, as Roberto just said, helping them or enable them to better comply with the national legislations. So at the ILO, we have been conducting some studies and assessments on the awareness and use and acceptance for digital wage payments amongst workers, but also employers, of course, in several countries, including in Vietnam, the Philippines, in Myanmar, just to cite a few and not to mention the countries that have been presented already. We have been also, my colleagues from the Better Work program that many of you know, of course, working in the government sector, have engaged in this topic of digital wage payments in a number of countries, including Bangladesh, Cambodia, and in other countries. From our studies and our experience, we learned that, yes, there is a strong willingness from the enterprises in general to transition to digital wages for the benefits that were mentioned before by Marjo and the other speakers. But we also have learned that the switch is not easy, right? And a rapid transition doesn't mean success. For example, some enterprises, and I'm sure many of us have seen that some enterprises that have transitioned to digital wage payments maybe quickly have chosen to come back to cash-based payments. So a rapid transition doesn't mean success. What we see also is that, and it has been mentioned, that workers who are paid digitally, many of them just go to the ATM to cash out their money on payday. And this is really not what we are trying to do altogether, right? The objective is really that workers can have access to other financial services to improve their economic opportunities and resilience. So there are many challenges that have been mentioned, challenges at the level of the enterprises that may not know how to negotiate the transition, how to implement the transition. Challenges also at the level of the workers. And in many countries, we see that, from experience, that low-income workers may not have sufficient digital and financial literacy to embrace digital financial services efficiently. And the third challenge that is a very important one is the challenge of the ecosystem that may not be ready to make it work. In the examples that we have seen in Bangladesh or India, where digital financial services are very developed, it enabled the transitions to be fast. But in other countries where there are no ATMs around, where digital financial services are not, or mobile money services are not easily accessible, it is a challenge for an enterprise to push for the transition, because it won't be convenient for the workers. So I just wanted to contribute actually, and to mention or to reiterate what Martha Newton has said in her opening remarks, we have just launched a new initiative that is called the Global Center on Digital Wages for Decent Work. And the objective is really to address those challenges and to promote the transition to a responsible digital wage payments. We will have some activities at global level, but also in 4 countries, in Asia, in Africa, and in Latin America. So the countries are being identified, so I cannot share that with you now, but stay tuned, it will come shortly. And the idea is really that to have the opportunity at country level to promote this transition, working with enterprises, working with the business organizations, working with the workers' organizations, working with the financial sector, working with the government to build the ecosystem and to enable an effective transition. And the objective of working in these 4 countries is that we intend to generate some evidence, to generate some additional knowledge, because the knowledge is already there, as we could hear, but build an additional knowledge and evidence that it's really a win-win situation, or win-win-win, actually, a 3-win solution for the workers, for the employers, and for the governments, actually. So the idea is to test some solutions and generate some evidence and knowledge products that can be shared with other stakeholders, other countries, in order to scale up the transition. So I would like to mention that we see this center as a platform to foster exchanges, to gather and share good practices on wage digitization, and also a platform to provide tools, technical tools, advocacy tools to enable or to support employers and their business organizations, workers' organizations, government to transition to digital wage payments, and, if I may insist, to responsible digital wage payments. As we know that it is difficult to, it is difficult. It requires a lot of efforts to make sure that the payments are responsible and fully benefit the workers in terms of having access to their full wages without high cost to have access to their money, actually. And it requires also efforts to ensure that workers can use those digital financial services for other means and other purposes, as was said before. So what I would like to say as final words is that this global center that we are setting up is really a place for sharing experiences and knowledge that is already out there, right? We are not starting from scratch. There are already many good experiences in Bangladesh, in India, in Jordan, in many other countries where employers have taken steps to make it happen. So there are experiences out there. We know some of them, but I'm pretty sure that there are many other initiatives, maybe at local level, that are super interesting. So I would like to invite you to contact us if you have come across some initiatives of that sort, if you have been engaged, if you have been supporting some transition to digital wage payments, so that we can work together and make sure those lessons learned and good practices can be shared with a maximum of countries, a maximum of stakeholders, in order to make sure the workers and employers and governments can fully benefit from the transition. And I will stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Valerie. I take also your first remark. If you do it quickly, and I would say quickly, abruptly, with no, it can be a failure, and that can be very counterproductive. So we all this enthusiasm that we are bringing here also have to be carefully measured in order to do things properly with effective partnerships. And I'm sure that in this platform, we will be committed as IOA, already counting our commitment also to work there. but I'm sure also that the Better Than Cash Alliance also will be dealing with that. Now we have to give time also, of course, to all the participants, and there are many questions. So I'll give now to Matthias the floor so that he can handle that with all of you. Matthias, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Roberto. Thank you, all of you, for the great presentation. We have really a lot of questions, which is good. There's a lot of engagement, and your presentation actually raised a lot of comments, which is brilliant. I put the questions in 6 buckets, and then I think because of the limited time, all of you can see, to which of the bucket you want to respond. One bucket really refers to the issue about, can we not just make legal requirements for digital payments, right? Can we not just require companies to go digital? And that was raised by Tina and Udon. There are a lot of questions about the frameworks, right? How to harmonize financial tax and legal frameworks, how to make sure that the frameworks are safe against fraud with regards to corruption. A third bucket refers to the question, when we have a digital record of payments, can we include also other issues, for instance, working hours, right? So we would have then a digital record of working hours and not only of payments. This then, of course, becomes very important looking at labor disputes, but also for social compliance, right? The company then can better see whether its supplier is compliant with regard to working time and other issues. There are many, many questions linked to costs for the workers, right? Because there are financial transaction costs and others. And if your salary is low, will the worker not be disincentivized actually to go to digital? But there are also costs for companies, and the question are there, what are the costs for companies? There are questions linked, how to promote the transition to digital. And there's a question linked, how to incorporate literacy programs and other education and training programs. And there are questions linked, do we have a timeline? What are the targets when we speak about the transition from cash to digital? Do you have a strategy where you say until 2025, you want to achieve X amount of workers going digital? And then finally, and I think that's very important, what are the success factors in going digital, right? What are employers, what are government believing, what are the key matters actually we have to look at when we want to do this transition? These are the big buckets. For 14 minutes left, over to you, Roberto, to make sure every of the panelists speaks. Now my math is pressed 3 minutes.
Well, the floor was questions. I will start with Marjo. Please go quickly if you don't mind. There are 6 questions, but if you can use your capacity to receive, to synthesize, that would be very, very appreciated. Thank you.
No, thank you very much. And that's a great list of questions. And I'm sure I talk also on behalf of Valerie and you, IOE, that we're also interested to see those questions so that we can also address them better in the future and make sure that, we address that through the center as well. So it's very helpful for that. I would start maybe very briefly on the success factors for companies, to successfully look at digitization and scale. And maybe I can speak a little bit about, about the cost as well. So on the first one, on the drivers, we have some, resources around that based on experience from different companies. And one of the framework that we use is a success factors around 3 buckets. The first one is really internally within the company, making sure that this becomes an important, commitment and topic for the companies to look at how do I get to digital payments. And that starts by mapping where your cash is and mapping how much cash is costing you. So that, is a bit of the beginning, and making sure that you also have some champions internally that will be in charge of driving this for your company. The second bucket is around how to create a value proposition for all the people in your stakeholders in your supply chain. And employees, of course, is a big one, but we also see in a lot of companies, it has to go through some suppliers, some factories, some business partners. So how do you also create the value proposition for them to make sure that when they switch to digital, they also see the benefit? And that makes the link a little bit to, of course, being able to provide some support in terms of how do I use my account? How do I get access to other financial services if I'm an employee? And if you're working also with some suppliers and factories, what am I going to gain out of it? How much am I spending right now on cash payments? And that can help to finance part of the cost of the transition. And the third bucket is what a lot of the different panelists have also referred to, is creating this ecosystem. And Kapil was so right when he said there is a big role to play for employer association, for brands, for companies to be that voice, also to say digital payments is important for us. It's important for our efficiency, for our transparency. How can we work with the financial system and the government, to make that happen at scale? And for us at the Alliance, that's really the core of bringing all these different stakeholders together, because not one organization can do it alone, not even the government, not the financial sector, it's everybody together. And so that's extremely important. And that, as also Dr. Hook said, how the role of these financial service provider during a crisis and how quickly can they react is also extremely important. So I hope that helped in terms of the
Thank you so much for being also succinct on that. I think it's very, very helpful. I will go now to Mahmoud. Any remark that you can do quickly?
Thank you.
Set of questions.
Regarding if the system is mandatory or not, of course, in Qatar, the WPS is mandatory for the companies, and non-compliance will cost them a fine. So to make sure that they are committed to the system, we cannot do it like voluntarily. Then if we can expand or extend the system to the other allowances and the work hours, yes, actually the WPS in Qatar, after the assessment and the improvement of the system, it's really cover that area. So we have all of these data on the digital data within the system. But we in Qatar, we started the implementation of the system gradually. So we started with the raising awareness, try to support the companies to attract them to register to the system. When it's come to the strategy and our policy to really our aim to move to the digital payment, actually in Qatar we succeed to achieve the first goal is to integrate the whole enterprises. So, for example, in 2019, 75% of the enterprises was registered in the system, and now we have around 96%. So this show you the really huge move in the right direction.
That's great. I mean, you started with a system which is compulsory for those that are under the scope, and we're expanding it gradually. But of course, in your government, in your country, also you have some kind of good investment, okay, which is also quite remarkable. It's not always the case. I mean, we have to say that that's not always the case, and the figure is also quite. So, Rubana, any remarks very quick remarks regarding the questions that have been raised?
Yes, I would like to address the question on the cost. So Bangladesh government is almost doing alpha testing on the interoperable digital transfer protocol. It's called IDTP, Roberto. And under IDTP, this will be a vendor neutral platform. So every MFS, every mobile financial service providers, and anybody who wants to serve the sector will have to be in competition. So the cost will be considerably lower, almost close to free. So the cost will be less, absolutely the minimum. And I think that should be bearable, whether the employer pays it or the worker pays it. But it's important that everybody gets a chance to be the lowest bidder, otherwise they lose business. And also about the training bit, IDTP will actually be quite a platform which allows just plug in and play option to most of the systems. So it's important for all of us to remember that, being the fluid platform that it is, all that we have to do is basically incentivize the manufacturers also to become a part of this. And we have proposed a few incentives, not in terms of cash, but we have requested the government to also popularize the offers so that there will be massive enlistment. And BGME as an association has been the first association to align with the ICT ministry, and we have told them that we will be the first ones to be signing up for IDTP platform. Thank you.
Great, great. I mean, also the first point related to have the competition among suppliers also on digital payment is also important. And the second one also to make that also an incentive to employers and business organizations to join is also great. So we have Kapil, and then I'll follow in the same order. Kapil, any remark you're going to make based on the question,
sure.
Please?
Sure. I think I'll take the one about the worker concerns. I mean, one should assume that the employees would be concerned about moving from cash to digital. Back in 1996, I think my company moved from paying me cash to paying me through a bank account. Believe me, those first 2-3 months were tense for me, right? So one should assume that it would be even more tense for workers. So that this is a process which needs to be handled very maturely and very patiently by employers. So while I think that we all are very excited about moving from cash to digital, but I think employers, when they go through this process, have to be very calibrated and very careful. This can cause huge disruption if the workers' concerns are not addressed. So a lot of handholding is required for the workers. Many of the factories that we work with, when they moved from cash to digital, they set up help desks on the factory floors where if the workers were facing any issues, they could come and talk to that help desk and get their concerns addressed. Many of them handheld those workers for 6 months to a year so that they were comfortable handling an ATM card or a mobile wallet kind of a situation. So it's like excitement, yes, but it has to be very, very slow and steady. I would also recommend employers not to go for cash to digital for all their employees in one go. Go slow, like start with a smaller number and then scale it up over a period of time. This is the successful way of moving from cash to digital. Once they move from cash to digital, the workers over a period of, say, after a year and a half, they get more comfortable with it. And then the satisfaction levels, as we have measured, is much higher. So yes, I mean, initially there are huge concerns. You can expect 100% of the workers not to be excited about it, but over a period of time, say about a year and a half to 2, the satisfaction level goes up to about 80-90%.
This is wise advice, and then there's some remarks already been made in the chat function. Exactly my point, great insights on as we yes this process. Shilpa, any remarks? And
yes, those are all excellent points, and just a couple of things I want to reinforce that had been brought up earlier is that in the transition, I think it's important to create a really strong foundation, and that includes setting up the systems for success. One of them is mobile uptake. We have brought up Bangladesh in several examples, and there are, there is still quite a way to go in the journey for full mobilization of mobile usage in Bangladesh, especially with women. And so that includes, creating greater leverage points and partnerships with the mobile providers and the financial services as well, so that you have two key actors that are very much leaning into wage digitization and ensuring that those two ecosystems are working in concert with this broader work to digitize wages in the supply chain. Another point I want to also reinforce is that it's not just about teaching workers and getting them comfortable with wage digitization. It's also about training and providing financial literacy, because there are broader implications with having money in a mobile account. What do you do next with it is really, really key. Otherwise, in some cases, cash may be the most preferred method, and it may provide ease in daily interactions. So I think having those two components really strong will ensure wage digitization. And I also, a third point that's smaller, beyond, of course, building trust with workers, which does take time, is also something that hasn't been brought up, which is that, you know, there's sort of this dual track within the humanitarian community and then within the development community. And the development community is working towards, you know, cashless digitization of wages, whereas the humanitarian community has, over the last 10 years, gone towards cash as a preferred way for deploying to beneficiaries, because it's quick, it's rapid, and it gives them a lot of independence. And I think trying to merge those two tracks, because you know, you'll have people in countries that may have for a long time been given cash by the international community, and have worked in an informal sector that now transition to the formal sector, and then have to sort of program how they work with money and income. So I would say, you know, my invitation to people within sort of the broader development community is to try to create a bridge with some of the humanitarian actors, so that you don't have two disparate tracks.
The three elements, you know, the mobile uptake, also the element of training, and also this bridge between the informal and formal, also with the humanitarian players. That's also very well taken. Valerie, we are now running out of time. We should have it finished. You have the duty to be concise and answering the questions in a brief manner. Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. No, I won't be long, but what I just wanted to mention is that from what I know, there is evidence out there on the benefits for large enterprises and for the workers working in large enterprises. When it comes to SMEs, I mean, smaller enterprises that have less workers, that may present a higher level of informality in terms of employment. There is not much evidence that the benefits are as important as for the large enterprises. So this is our objective also with this global center, to look at SMEs also, and to look at to look whether there is a business case depending on the payroll size. I don't know. I mean, it may really depend, right? And also looking at other economic sectors where many workers are still being paid in cash. I'm thinking of the maybe the construction sector. I'm thinking of the agriculture sector in some of the value chains. So this is something we will be looking at also, and I really appreciate the field experience and very concrete experience that the speakers have shared with us today. It is very inspiring, and there are many lessons to be learned. And so I will be interested in following up actually with you to see how we can collaborate. I will just end thanking the IOE, because I do believe that the employers and their business organizations, your members at country level, at regional level, can have really a key role to support this transition in collaboration with the governments, the financial sector, the workers' organization, and the technical partners. Thank you.
Thank you to you, Valerie. The points also on SMEs is very, very well taken, and also on sectors. So thank you to all of you. I mean, this conversation has been recorded and will be available also for those willing to do that. But more importantly, we'll follow up. We are action-oriented, and that does not stop here. I think it has been a very rich exchange, and we will push the agenda for digital payments, but with care and with wisdom. Thank you so much for joining, and have a nice morning, evening, afternoon. And to all our partners, the Better Than Cash Alliance, and of course to the IR. And I also want to do a special thanks to Matthias Storms, my deputy. He was the one also moving this agenda strongly. and also to Monique de Pierre, who was the one also pushing all the arrangements, and it's not easy, I have to tell you. Thank you again.
Thank you.
Thank you.